I would find myself in the house of my deceased grandmother and grandfather, and they both were in attendance. On a few occasions, I have had the dark forces mimicking deceased relatives, and I do take my real side hat off to them, as they put on quite a convincing performance. However, if one is standing connected to one's real self, even partially, the impostors tend to be revealed. It seems as though standing in a position of awareness beyond whomever one is in the company of allows one to see them in their complete actuality and discern any ill intent they may be harbouring and concealing. And so generally, the dark forces will be standing in a state of awareness, if indeed they have any, that is far lessened than someone on their awareness process, and their mimicking efforts are clearly seen, or they are unable to maintain the act that goes with the fake mimicry. They tend to revert to type, exhibit the sort of emotional and distorted attitudes one would associate with such beings. Anyway, on this occasion, my real self-impressions detected no skullduggery. In fact, I had the sense that my deceased grandparents were the guides. As often, the guides will assume the forms of my grandparents, and you get the sense of who some of the guides are through their adopted forms. You begin to recognize their unique signatures. One of them was Rebazar, as when he does feature in my dreams, he has a rather stern countenance, or at least he is a little stern with me. I think sometimes I can be a bit funny on the real side, and better not to indulge a child, for that is what we are, as we are in our rudimentary awareness stages, and adults can't let children run too much amok. Anyway, the scene was they and I, and they were presenting me with a meal. I would accept and consume this. On waking, I would recognize this as being preparation, as we can construe food and meals as ideas. So the guides were offering me an opportunity for something, and in the dream, this was demonstrated by the meal. I would accept this, and the ideas the offer represented, as I had discerned these to be guides, and not impostor dark forces. I was therefore willing to accept the meal, so a preparation for what was to come, as the next scene would find me in a car with my grandparents again. The guides were taking me to my next destination. They were the drivers. Rebazar, as my grandfather, at the wheel, with the other guide I did not recognize the identity of beside him, though I sense it was a female guide. I've had a female guide feature in several of my dreams of late, and this one had the same impressional signature. Next to me was a relatively well-known and renowned alternative information researcher. It was Nick Redfern. So I passed the time and the journey talking with him, all things paranormal. I asked him what he thought of Nick Pope, if he was indeed a charlatan or genuine. I asked him about his views on the Rendlesham UFO crash event of 1980, and what he thought of the upcoming release of new information pertaining to this case. Cable Green and Gary Heseltine, the ex-policeman who was investigating and producing the Rendlesham documentary. Anyway, it was just a discussion of UFO phenomena in creation generally. We arrived at our destination. The scene would skip to my being in a grand hall with many peoples within. The guides now had departed. Seems they would leave the rest of the adventure to me, to see what I would do. I'm sure they were watching close at hand. There surely was quite the gathering, and my personal self may well have been uncertain as to what was going on, but having experienced how real side dreams unfold, the personal self is always there and questioning, pondering and scratching its personal head. But the real self just knows, and so I simply stay as connected with my real self as much as I am able. And the more I do this, the more the real side dream unfolds without issues, according to plan, and maximizing the awareness-inducing potential of the dream experience. The viewpoints for comparison more readily recognized, objective viewing achieved with more ease, and as much information can be gleaned as possible and taken back to the physical level on waking for my dream files. Suddenly, though, there were half-naked women on the stage, dancing in a most seductive manner. My real self looked on with indifference, but my personal self was rather goggle-eyed and distracted. I would say this was an attempted distraction by the influence or agents of the dark forces. As I was saying, we can maximize what we recognize and take from a dream experience according to the extent that we remain connected to our real selves. If our personal self creeps in, we can lose valuable information, and if we are delicately going about some activity that requires complete connection with the real self to achieve, anything less than full real self-immersion will be detrimental to the execution of what we are doing. Or we can begin to lose recognition of the real side as the personal self creeps in. It is effectively like dropping body vehicle filters in front of the scene, making it harder and harder to recognize. We then begin to perceive and consider it literally, and to the extent it is completely obscured. It is still going on. We just have removed our ability to perceive and recognize it. On this occasion, the distraction had me move too much into my personal self, and the entire scene faded from my view as my recognition was diminished and lost as I stepped into my filtering little self. Now I was somewhere else. A vast room of windows or screens into other worlds, and through these screens I could see all kinds of distractions of a sexual nature. There was even a female in the room itself, trying to seduce me. Further, as I was bombarded by all this, the windows were like conduits into other dimensions, and those within them, some of them at any rate, the individuals could perceive me, and would attempt interaction, a verbal interaction, as they could not move through the windows from the worlds they were in. My personal self had been captivated enough to bring me here, that the other experience would fade from my ability to recognize, but enough of my real self was still connected too, and I had a sense to wish to return to the prior experience, as it was of a far more awareness expanding nature. Seems the stimulation of my personal self was enough to bring me here, but I was fairly well connected to my real self throughout, and the real self overrided the personal self. I respectfully bid all these individuals farewell, and took my leave, and as I made this determination and decision, I would connect more strongly with my real self. The personal little self faded back into the background. The literal layers of activated emotion and mental consideration subsided, and I would be back in the grand hall again with all the peoples. No travelling necessary, just a recognition, and I was standing then back in the place that my real recognition and awareness allowed. I was now moving outside of the grand hall with the others. The seductresses had departed. Seems only I was able to see them from before, so perhaps a deception and distraction just for me. We were all outside now, and were awaiting some event or other. We all knew something was coming, and all were anticipating it. I would begin speaking with the peoples, and we had quite the discussion. Seems I knew it was some event involving spacecraft, a mass impending display, and then all these lights began to fill the sky. If we have a genuine UFO mass humanity wake-up display, a possible faked one as well may be experienced from the dark forces, as on a dream I had, which suggested a deception to run coinciding with the genuine one. The unaware masses would be in a state of panic at such events, and the aware folks may well be on hand, perhaps have the responsibility to calm the situation, or at least better prepare people by getting out and about and engaging with them before such events occur. This situation had that feel about it, so maybe a glimpse into the future, a little preparation for me, courtesy of the real guides. Seems as usual, the dark forces are always trying to interfere and distract us as we go about our process. They can't really attack us, as karmic consequences are severe for doing so, and they can be sent immediately to the phantom zone if we request this to a guide. Also, they can't deceive us readily, as with our awareness we see through their deceptions and mimicry, and we can handle ourselves on the real side also, as connection to our real awareness gives us the ability to deal with situations and abrasive individuals. All they can do is get our agreement to certain ideas and things they set up, and if successful, we can have tap lines and cause and effect consequences. But we can just as readily decide differently once we discern an agreement made to a tap-lining idea. For in the new nowness, for those who are sincere, there is karma no more. Here we can see how I was distracted, allowing my personal self to be stimulated, stepping out of the new nowness of my awareness, and back into cause and effect creation subsequently, effectively agreeing with the idea that was set up for this purpose, and finding my recognition temporarily diminished as I stepped more so into my literal self, and cause and effect being instant on the real side had me instantly move to the effect of the idea agreed with. On the physical level, it would have taken more time, an agreement, and then the effect down the road a ways, or even a future lifetime, as we chuck our emotions and thoughts all over the place, focus on this and chase that, etc. It demonstrates also how no travelling was necessary, except from the personal self perspective, as the personal self is very much a product of creation, and the agreed upon laws of space and time apply, less so, it seems, as we move upwards, literally speaking, through the life levels. And with the ears, beyond creation, there is no time or space, as everything is an isness, and a recognition, and standing in the new nowness of the ears in creation has us simply moving to wherever we choose according to the recognitional faculties we utilize. As we sit here, we could suddenly be in the real universes if we dropped the filtering layers of the physical vehicle suddenly and had the recognition to see beyond creation into the true light reality. I would never get to see the UFO event in this dream, but it revealed to me what I needed to be aware of now. In fact, I suddenly found myself removed from that scene and in another one. I was again walking with a group of individuals, and all these seemed to be an assortment of aliens and unearthly beings. Maybe I was trying to fit in, as I had adopted the form of a cat person, and I moved with these peoples through rocky terrain. Suddenly, one of the individuals was attacked by one of the others, and I moved to intercede and prevent harm to this being. An error of awareness judgment, I would suggest. I effectively had involved myself in the karma of these peoples. We are reminded of Paul Twitchell with Rebazar in the tavern, where a fight broke out, and Rebazar advised Paul not to interfere, lest he take on unnecessary karma, and to let themselves kill each other if they must. This was demonstrated here, as I became embroiled in the karma, cause and effect that needn't have been mine, as I effectively agreed with the idea this situation represented. I suspected then it was another setup for this very reason. As we continue with our process of awareness, we must be cautious not to be caught up in any battle or fight, to take any stand in the dualistic nature of creation, the eternal strife between good and evil, as this will have us caught up in the cause and effect, and we can become lost in creation again, regardless of if we fight for the idea of good or evil. So yes, a squabble may be arranged for this reason, and the scene would then skip to my being at a kind of trial situation, as I switched to the effect of the cause I had set in motion by agreeing with the idea that the fight represented. I was now surrounded by all these aliens and beings, and they were discussing my fate. I bore this patiently, not too concerned, it seems. I had enough connection to my real self at this moment, and I actually took the time to speak with some of the alien mob, and even answer some questions. I spoke about creation, this and that. One asked me how long it takes to become aware. I would respond by saying how you are the decider of that, according to the speed by which you remove all tap lines, agreements, and attachments that keep you limited according to focus, real intent, etc. The trial was now over. I was to be executed. One of the individuals I had spoken with was most gleeful at this predicament. I would shrug and say that I would simply depart in the blink of an eye, and so I did. I built up energy within myself and did my translocation trick. I found that if I am in an undesirable location, if I am there through cause and effect, that I have slipped out of my real awareness enough consequently, then I tend to rely on a facility I utilize when I get into dodgy situations, what I used to do in my astral projection days before finding the new presentation. Build up energy in myself, picture where I want to go, and there I would translocate, and thus back to my bedroom on the physical level. In my awakened state, I would find myself. So yes, endless distractions and snares designed to bait and captivate the personal little self. Phenomena in creation, the influence, and lewd females. The dark forces with their disguises and mimicry and situations and scenes set up on the real side to draw our attention, seek our agreement, and tap line and draw us into cause and effect. But always we can recognize these snares with our awareness, and even if we are successfully waylaid, misdirected, or fall flat on our faces, if our real intent is firm and our focus maintained, we just step back into our awareness, the new nowness, brush ourselves off and carry on. We can just chalk these interferences up to experience, more objective viewpoints for comparison, and is recognitional opportunity, and it affords us information on all the means by which the dark forces may trick us, as they reveal all their cards, and if nothing else, it makes the real side more entertaining, for what would an adventure be without the villains? As an aside, the dream may have stopped at the first scene, where I was in the house with the guides, for I would wake up briefly at this point, and was in the process of getting up to edit some videos for YouTube, but I had the impression and the sense to go back to sleep, and the other two scenes and all they encompassed would follow. I would suggest the personal self not only blocks one's ability to remember dreams or certain content according to what it wants to see or not, but it may well stimulate us to wake up earlier, and thus we miss other dream experiences resultingly. I suggest my urge to get up and edit videos, although seemingly a beneficial and fine idea, was encouraged on this occasion by the personal self, for this reason: but the real self interceded with the far better awareness expanding option in that moment of further sleep and real side experiences. And I leaned toward the real self suggestion on this occasion. So all I can say is this: be aware of where these impulses come from, the personal self, the influence, lest we forfeit real side dream experiences and the potential is recognitional opportunity they present.
There's a lot to learn. You have studied well, and this is what it takes for people is to, study is to where they get to the point to where they really understand this, and more so than just chasing their likes and dislikes.